You guys know you're excited about this. I can tell you that I am. It's Monday, which means nothing if you're a musician and you didn't work all weekend. But let me tell you, before we get started, I have to thank my buddies at Five Star Guitars. Five Star is sponsor for the show. They are based in Beaverton, Oregon. So there's no sales tax if you order guitar gear. So my next guest, I am sure, has more guitars than he can handle, but he can get accessories. If you go to the link below, fivestarguitars.com/all access live and use the promo code of all access 15, you're going to get 15% off besides no sales tax. So you're going to save a bunch of money. You're going to save the business. They were actually voted from the NAM Association, National Association of Music Merchants, as Vendor of the Year. So top music store in the year in the world from the NAM, and they are our sponsor. So go to them, get 15% off plus no sales tax, save a bunch of money, and you'll be an amazing guitarist, just like my good friend Jennifer Batten, who hosts the Guitar Cloud Symposium. Guitar Cloud Symposium is Jennifer's opportunity to teach you from the greatest guitarists in the world how to get great gigs, how to manage this crazy music business that is happening now. You know Jennifer from her days with Michael Jackson and Jeff Beck. She's based here in the Northwest and teaches there at Five Star Guitars as well, virtually. So sign up for guitars, get some good stuff, and go to Guitar Cloud Symposium, and you'll get hooked up with Jennifer. Now, before we get started, I just have to tell you, 3 guests today, the incredibly successful cats in the music business. Some you may not realize how connected they were to so many different bands. The first guest that I want to bring on is somebody that not only is this killer front guy, but he's also been a member of some of the biggest bands in the world. Please welcome Stevie Salas. Stevie, how you doing, my man?
Hey, I'm here. I'm here.
I'm so glad you're here, man. I like that you've got the native artwork behind. Every guest, we've got different stuff. So Aronoff has his platinum records in the background. He wanted to talk about those. Tell me a little bit about what's right behind you. I know that you're Apache. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm Apache. That's just a piece of art on my wall that I got in New Mexico many years ago. And I think I didn't really look at my background when I set this up. I was just trying to find a chair that didn't give me a double chin, because each camera, different kind of things, is a different vibe. Like I was on a Zoom conference this morning, and it made me look skinny. And then this camera made me look fat, so I had to change my seat.
I
So that I had my native paint in the back of it. I just had a cool picture of me and President Obama, I think, back there.
Oh,
And
no way.
I'm not a
Oh,
Democrat, not a Republican. I really hate most politicians, but I got to tell you, having dinner and a conversation with President Obama was quite fascinating, out of respect purely for the office and him as a dude. He was a really cool dude. I don't know if he was a great president, but he was a great dude.
okay.
So
I got to ask you about that. I mean, politics aside, that's as big as it can get. I mean, tell me, did you have some one-on-one time where you could actually just ask him questions and shoot
oh
the
yeah,
breeze?
we were hanging out. It was really cool.
How
And
did how did that
well, I
happen?
had one-on-one time with Trump too a few times. When I was at American Idol, he used to come around, and we'd be in New York on Regis and Kathy, or somebody was one of our idols or something. And then I ended up having to sue him. So I sued him in court, and he settled with me. And so I have some history with both presidents, those
I,
presidents.
we could talk about some of that offline, but I'm interested about what kind of questions and hang you had with President Obama.
Here's the thing about Obama, right? You get into these rows, whether you're with Mick Jagger or you're with Obama, the legendary type of guys. It's always, they get into a headspace of like they're on autopilot kind of until you can break past this glass, right? And
Okay.
so I have a thing about getting to know, when you get to know someone like a real person, like when you hang around, if you're working with a big movie star, or George Carlin from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, or anything that I did like that, or Obama, President Obama. I just happened at the time with Obama, I had worked for 3 years at the Smithsonian National Museum of the American Indian. I created a project there called Up Where We Belong, Natives and Popular Culture, which was a rock and roll exhibit at the Smithsonian about the Native American influence on pop music history. I later made a film called Rumble about it that actually I got my Emmy Award thing in the mail today. It's kind of crazy.
Right.
And
Congrats.
yeah, so I got to know this guy called Conrad, who was the head of the National Asian Pacific Museum at the Smithsonian. Conrad was Obama's brother-in-law, right? So when Obama came up to me at this dinner party, we were having dinner and blah, 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 and we started talking, hey, Stevie, let's take a picture together. I was like, yeah. And then I whispered in his ear, hey, man, I'm gonna call Conrad and tell him that I met you. And he goes, Conrad, you know Conrad? And once that happened, he became Obama the basketball player, Obama the guy, right? And he was like,
Yeah.
hey, Conrad. Next thing you know is blah, 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 just like you and I are talking now. And once you break that, get that person out of that bubble, they
Yeah.
become who they really are, which is usually pretty cool. And it's the same thing when you're producing a big act. You know, they get this uncomfortableness that they have to be this thing. And then once you
Right.
break past that, they're just like, I'm like you. I feel fat, or I got a double chin, or I'm uncomfortable talking to strangers. Or, you find out all this shit about them that they hide, right? And
That's what this,
the key is always have a little something when you start talking to somebody that breaks that ice.
honestly, man, that is what this show is all about. That is, for me, that we've had all sorts of people, movie stars and musicians and visionaries. And what I love is authenticity, right? So when you break down that wall a little bit, somebody's vulnerable. Every person on the planet, man, has been affected by COVID. They all have to deal with whatever taxes, families, financial issues, whatever. When you get past that point where you strip away the facade and you get to know somebody, I love when you get to the root of somebody. Like I had Rudy Sarzo on a Thursday. Rudy, has played with, everybody under the sun, and he was so humble. The humility comes from that authenticity, man. And I love that. Now, I know you worked a lot with Rod Stewart. Don Kirkpatrick is an old bandmate of mine as well. And Don, I think you were.
Wow. He
Yeah.
joined the band before I left. See, I was in the band in a weird time. I joined the band when Rod had the same band for like 100 years.
Right.
And then what happened was he got rid of all his band and went with the Power Station guys. And Andy Taylor left Duran Duran. And I got a gig playing with Andy Taylor when he left Duran Duran. And then Andy fired me. Then Rod hired me because Andy had produced this record. It was a long story, but I joined the band. It was pretty much all New York. It was Jeff Golub, Carmine Rojas from Bowie. It was a lot of the Bowie guys. Tony Thompson was the original drummer.
Oh,
Tony, God, it was like he was a god. And I came in, and Tony was the drummer. And then Tony ended up leaving. And Eddie Martinez, our friend, Eddie Martinez, who I used to pretty much clone in the late 80s in LA. I was one of the only guys in LA doing hip hop records. And I would mix rock on it because I was a staff producer for David Kirschenbaum. And David Kirschenbaum would go, you know anything about rap music? They didn't even call it hip hop then. And I go, yeah. And because a friend, David Friendly, taught me how to sample, so I'd sample AC/DC, go, bam, 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 and then the guy would rap. That's pretty much heavy like that. And so I would do these rap records, and really all I would listen to is what Eddie was doing with Run DMC and sort of try to emulate that. And they used to say, oh, you're like little Eddie Martinez.
Oh,
so, yeah. So then, so Eddie and I, when I first met Eddie, I was producing a band called the Pandoras, an all-girl band. It was really a hip underground band. And the girl guitar player worked at EMI Records. And one day she called me and she goes, Eddie Martinez is here, because he played with Robert Palmer, and Robert Palmer was signed to EMI. Right. And I go, whoa. She goes, you want to get on the phone with him? I go, really? And she hands the phone. He goes, hey, bro, how you doing? I go, man, I got to tell you, I love your playing and fucking hammer guitars and all this shit, because then I had a hammer guitar.
And you actually nailed his voice, by the way, too. That was good. Yeah.
Eddie and I just played a gig together in the Bahamas, last year.
He told me. Yeah, man. This all-star gig.
Yeah, it was really bitching, and Mark McGrath and a whole bunch. It was really fun. But so when I walked in, back to the breaking the ice thing, okay, I show up to the Rod Stewart audition. Keep in mind, in 1988, Rod Stewart was a superstar. And it wasn't like now where you see everything and know everything. Seeing him walking in the room, I had seen him in town before, but like, my God, it was like a walking hologram. He was like a god. And it's like seeing David Bowie or Tina Turner, any of those people. They were just like Elton John. It would be like, oh, my God. Yeah. And so I walk in the room, and there's Carmine Rojas on bass from Bowie, who has a worship Bowie. And there's Tony Thompson on drums, and, Chic and the Bowie thing. And it's like, they were the guys that I idolized. I idolized the Power Station. And there was Eddie Martinez. And I was able to walk in scared shitless. By the way, I was a kid. It was my first gig. The only other band I'd been in was my band in high school. So I walk in, and I'm able to go, hey, Eddie, we actually talked on the phone once when you were at EMI. And he kind of goes, oh, yeah. And next thing you know, he hugged me, and then it was like I was one of the boys. And this guy, all the New Yorkers are a tough crowd, right? With the New York guys, way tougher than the LA guys. But they were instantly, I was, I'm American Indian, and they're Puerto Rican and black. And I was instantly brought in like one of the boys, even though I was not even one of the boys. I just dreamed. I used to have the boys' posters on my wall at my mom's house. And so I went in and jammed, and the problem was I played too much like Eddie. So they told me I had the gig. Then they said, "No, we can't do it. You can't play acoustic guitar or slide." And I go, "I can't. I suck at both of those." And it just so happened that later on, Eddie decided right before the tour started to go back to Robert Palmer, and Rod Stewart called me and said, "Hey, will you come down tomorrow?" Malcolm Cullingworth called me, Rod's assistant, and said, "Can you come down tomorrow? Rod wants to see you." I'm like, oh. So I went down there, and I stepped in and rocked, and I had my, the key is being great at the right times. You don't have to be great all the time, but you got to be great when it counts. And at auditions, I was always an ace, and I came in and aced this audition. And before they realized I sucked on acoustic guitar and couldn't play slide, I already got the gig. And 8 days later, we were playing football stadiums.
No way. 8 days, man. God, that, you talked about acing auditions, and I've talked a lot about auditions on the show. Carmine was on my show as well, man, which Carmine Rojas blows my mind, not only in playing ability, but his vibe is so mellow and he's so humble. But he talked, and Eddie had talked about those early auditions in New York, right? Where like walking down the street, having to audition for Stevie Wonder just on a whim, right? And the nerves that you have to have, right? Walking into those auditions early. You have any that were just were memorable that maybe you didn't hit that you could talk about?
Well, I had the shittiest audition with the Chili Peppers. I got called in 90. It's the only bad audition I've ever had. I got called in, it was 93 because I was getting ready to go on tour with Duran Duran, and I was the music director for Terence, Trent, Darby. And we had a new album out, and it was platinum, and we were doing this huge tour with Duran Duran, a wedding album tour with, I Won't Cry for Yesterday, the Ordinary World. It was the Ordinary World Tour, it was called.
And Vibrator was out right then too, right? That was
came out. No, Vibrator wasn't out yet. I did Vibrator, but it was Symphony or Damn was the record before Vibrator. That was the album that we did.
Okay.
Then Vibrator came out as I was leaving the band, but that band that he used was the band I put together as his music band. So what happened was I walked in, the Chili Peppers then manager, I think his name was Lindy Getz, I think his name was. He was really bitching, and he liked me, and he called me. He goes, "Listen," he goes, "this is a great gig. You need to go down and play with these guys, and the paper's huge." He goes, in other words, I'm going to get rich. It's going to be. They had already just done Blood Sugar Sex Magic, that tour, and Visconti quit. And I said, shit. But my head was crazy because I had a recording contract. At the same time, I was music director for Terence, Trent, Darby. And at the same time, I was producing the Sass Jordan and writing the Sass Jordan Rats album. So I was super busy. And my head quite wasn't in my punk funk face. I wasn't quite in the zone. And I was at Leeds rehearsing, had Terence's rehearsal running at Sass across the street at NRG Studios. And I was running back and forth across the street. It was fucking crazy. And then I had to grab my tech and run down the street to another studio and jam with Chad and Flea and Anthony. And I just fucking sucked. I just didn't suck. I didn't lock in. I didn't, you got to get in the mind. You got to become like when you look at them and your brain connects. And it was just I don't know what happened. It's never happened to me before. And I guess it just wasn't meant for me to be doing that gig. And the only reason I was really bummed was because I would have been, I'd have made $20 million that year.
Right. Yeah.
Money. It was the thing.
The paper.
Yeah. And because I knew Anthony and those guys. I used to, when I was a kid, the first guy I ever played with was George Clinton and Bootsy Collins and those guys. George is who discovered me when I was homeless and at Baby O Studios.
Wait, so start that story. This is crazy.
Well, that's like the most famous story in my life. Everyone seems to know that one because I moved to LA in 1985 from San Diego, January 1st.
Okay.
I was living with my drummer, Winston A. Watson Jr., who was the drummer of Color Code and then later with Bob Dylan. And we lived in this rich girl's house who had a jam room. And I slept in the closet. She had a giant walk-in closet. I put a mattress in there, and that's where I slept. And I didn't care. I was 20 years old or whatever. It didn't matter.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I got kicked out of the house by August. We all got kicked out. We had to move because her rich dad said, you guys all can't stay there anymore. And I think she was doing drugs and she lit the house on fire. It was fucking, Hollywood 1985 was crazy. And so I had nowhere to go and I didn't want to move home to my parents. And Rick Parada, the owner of Baby O Studios, and David O from the band The Plimsolls were my friends. And they said, look, if you help us clean the studio, sweep the floors, and maybe lock up and run our rehearsal studio, you can stay here till you figure out what you're doing. So I put all my clothes in a garbage bag and I slept on the couch at Baby O recording studio at the Berwyn building on Sunset Boulevard. And rock stars would come in the room, like I remember Kiss was in there and Vinnie Vincent Invasion, and remember Gene Simmons was producing a band called Keel.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Mark Ferrari's band, my dear friend Mark Ferrari. And I would go up to those guys and I'd say like, hey, I play guitar. Anyone need a guitar player? And they'd all be like, Gene Simmons is like, go fuck yourself. And I'd be like, okay. And
That sounds like Gene.
you know, whatever. I don't care. I have thick skin. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And so I did the same thing to George Clinton one day. I said, hey, George, I know this guy Zio that I work with. And he goes, oh, you know Zio? And I go, yeah. And I go, I play guitar if you need something. And he goes, okay. That's all he said. It was okay. So that night I was asleep. And he had a session going on, and he had a really great guitar player in there named Jack Sherman, who recently passed away, I'm sorry to say, because he was cool. And Jack used to play in a band before that with my neighbor here in Austin, Texas, Charlie Sexton, which is really crazy, small world.
Yeah.
Studio with George. And David Spradley, who wrote Atomic Dog with George, came and woke me up about 3 a.m. and said, hey, you want to try some guitar in this thing we're working on? And I'm like, yeah, of course I do. And I went in the studio, and Jack Sherman was in there still with his guitar, and it was kind of uncomfortable. So I was listening to what Jack Sherman was playing, and it was really, really cool. But a light bulb went off in my head, and I realized that Jack Sherman was a massive fan of Funkadelic. And so what he was doing was playing Funkadelic with George. And George was not wanting to do Funkadelic. George, every album, was trying to find something new, something different. You know, Thomas Dolby would be there doing crazy shit. It was crazy. And so I did everything but that. I just went bonkers on the Wang bar, and I plugged in all these Marshalls, and it was I just went bananas, and George was going bananas with me. And at the end of the night, Jack left, and I stayed, and I finished the album, and that's how my career started.
Oh my God!
And Jack was. Oh, by the way, Jack. Did I tell you that Jack was the guitar player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers then? Back to the Chili Peppers, full circle there. Okay.
No way! Oh my God, man! Yeah. Check this out. I don't know if you guys can see this, but the rest of our guests showed up here. We got
anybody. I can't see you or anybody. How do I see you guys?
Let's see. You know, I think you're on. So what I did, I screen shared because Dave was having a hard time with.
Oh, we're up here. Down. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So hang on. I think Dave dropped for a second. So while he comes back, we still got we got Melvin here. What's happening, Melvin Brannon?
Look at Mel.
Can you hear me, buddy? So we're doing multiple platforms here. Let's Melvin, can you hear me? Can't hear you. So check the audio settings, the lower down at the bottom. There's a little gear that shows what audio output. Check that, and I'm gonna get Dave back in here. 1 sec.
Get Zabba.
Zabba's
a technical wizard. He can fix anything.
Yes, he can. Yes, he can. I'm trying to get him in here. 1 sec. Here comes Dave.
What's happening?
There he is. What's happening, Mel?
Hey, all good, man. Hey, what's going on?
We got Mel. We got Dave popping in here too. Look at that. We got you. Woo!
The band is back.
Dave looking all like a supermodel. Always.
Yeah. Oh.
Oh shit! I lost audio.
Our host froze.
This is great, man. Hey. One here. Oh, we got all these people saying my mentor, Dave. We're looking for Dave's audio here. Dave, you there? Not yet, man. Oh, it's okay. Let's see. I'm looking for your audio. Can you check your? Are you there, buddy?
I see Dave.
I see him. I just can't hear him.
Dave.
Oh, you know what? This is oh my gosh. Oh, and I lost Stevie here for a second. There's Stevie. I lost Stevie for a second. I'm swapping him with Dave. This is kind of like Hollywood Squares now. I've got the 4 of you guys. Dave, if you can hear us, just check your output, your audio output. And while we're going here, ladies and gentlemen, Melvin Brannon, people might know him from Booker T and the MGs. I know you know him from Dan Reed Network and Stevie Salas, Color Code, man. What are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm just hanging out, man. I'm just trying to fit in with you cats. I'm finally ready to get it going on. What's happening?
I'm so glad to see you, man. I like that you got the upright there. This is good.
Oh, yeah, got to keep it close by.
Did you bring that so that
you're mature now? He's all mature with his upright.
Yeah, this is
bass player to grow up.
This is wise minds.
I'm a stately man these days. Yes. That's right. So what's going on, Stevie? I ain't seen you since the hen broke wind, my friend. What the hell's good?
I know. I'm this just doing a lot of nothing, hanging out, squeezing in a little something when I can.
Right. Much like the rest.
Hey, I don't know if you guys know this, but did you know me and Melvin, when we were kids, we were both managed by Bill Graham in San Francisco?
I just lost audio.
Are we crashing out? Does it keep crashing?
There was a little glitch there, I think, in the internet. So you guys can hear me all right?
I can hear you now.
I got you
Okay,
now.
cool. Awesome, man. Yeah, I see Dave's head, but I don't get to hear him.
Is your mic on, David?
Let's see.
You look slow motion.
He sent me a chat here. Let's see what he says. Hey, all right. Oh, you know what? I bet you he doesn't. He may not be able to see the window that shows the four of us, because I've got him coming up through Zoom.
Oh,
Dave, yeah.
Oh.
Hey, Dave, if you can hear me, I'm sharing a different screen because he dropped out. We'll get him back here. We'll get him back here in a second. So, guys, what was happening here is Dave's internet was kind of here and there, and so I brought him in with a different application. Hopefully, he can jump in here with this tool. And while we're waiting, one thing I was going to ask you about, man, before Stevie, I had Melvin and David on. We were talking a little bit about experiences out on the road. And so while Dave's not here, you can talk about him. See, so maybe you guys can share a fun David Abbruzzese story.
I'll tell you the best one for me.
Okay.
I'll tell you a good one. There's so many with him. Okay, so he comes to my house, 1990, I don't know whether 3 or 4, something in that ballpark. He shows up at my door. It's like, hey. It's like, at the time, it was like he was the most famous human being on the planet, I think, because Dave Abbruzzese was on remember that time where David was on every drum magazine, everywhere you looked, it was Dave Abbruzzese.
Oh, yeah.
His little toe patch thing going,
Yeah, I remember that, the whole thing, right? So he shows up at my house in Hollywood. I got this house in the Hollywood Hills that all of us used to stay at, and everyone used to have keys to, and it got recently torn down. The whole complex got torn down to apartments there, but it was this really cool house I had forever, and had a jam room in the back, bomb shelter. And David shows up, and he just moves into my house for a couple of weeks or a week or something. It was a bit of time. And David was just a normal cat. He would go and wash dishes and do all this shit. And I remember one day, I don't know if you know this, but a long time ago, I discovered a drummer named Taylor Hawkins and took him on his very first world tour. So Taylor was like my little brother.
No
so
kidding.
Taylor calls me. He's on tour with Alanis Morissette, and he calls me, and he says, "Hey, what are you doing?" Blah blah blah. Taylor. And I go, "Nothing." I go, "Dave Abbruzzese is in my kitchen washing dishes." I said it like that, like no big deal. Like, Dave Abbruzzese is in my kitchen washing dishes. Why? What's going on? He goes, "What?" He goes, Dave Abbruzzese is there? Oh my God, you're kidding. He flips out. So I walk over, and Dave's got a fucking apron on. Dishes, fucking pizza party or some shit. And he's fucking, he goes, "Hey, Taylor, what's going on?" And Taylor was like flipping out. And, Dave's just washing dishes and talking to Taylor Hawkins. It was so awesome. It was the best.
So humble, always.
Wow. But then everywhere we went, though, he was driving. The girls were going bonkers, right? 'Cause not only was he the drummer of Pearl Jam, he was rich as shit too. So he would do these things like, "Oh, let me give you a tip," and the bill would be like $100, and he would tip them $1,000.
God,
doing this shit like
I witnessed it.
Yeah, just crazy. Buy a coffee for everyone. It'd be $12, and he'd give the girl, $500, and he was just like, he was Dave, like the Pied Piper.
I asked him if he needed a butler.
He's just popping in here. There's a little spotty internet connection, but I'm hoping he can hear us like talking about how well he tipped. I witnessed it too, man. He was so gracious, and my girlfriend and I went and stayed with him. Took us out. We were broke college kids, man, and took us out for dinner for St. Patrick's Day. And I remember thinking, all right, between the two of us, we're maybe going to be able to order like bread, some soup. And Dave's like, man, just get whatever you want. And he was so gracious that he let us crash with him, for the week and cooking for us at home. I remember thinking, this is absolutely what rock stardom should be, right? I mean, every rock star should be that humble and cool. Turns out they're not. But, but Dave was the perfect example of that. We'll get him here in a second. I know he's in the dark right now on the screen, but those are good stories, man. There's no bad stuff you can say about him. He's just a good cat.
Hey,
Melvin.
Well, hold on. Did you know? I don't know if you knew this, but Melvin and I go way back. Because Melvin and I were both managed by Bill Graham.
Oh, correct? Really? Yo, I know that Melvin was with Dan Reed Network, but what was the gig that you were on, Stevie?
I was Stevie Salas Color Code, and he was Dan Reed Network.
Wait,
Bill Graham.
So Color Code was a Bill Graham band. I didn't know that.
Yeah, they signed me before I got signed, and the Dan Reed was one of their big acts.
Oh yeah, man.
I'd go see them, and Ivan Neville. Ivan Neville was also me and Ivan, and we were like all the young bucks of color.
The cats.
I remember the first thing that I said that I seen about Stevie that I knew he was a cool motherfucker because his dress code was like seriously on point, and he even had a pair of some leopard print shoes, and I always leopard print shoes, and I was like, damn man, he's got them leopard print shoes. I was like, bro, where'd you get those shoes, man? And he's just like, hey, well, I don't know if you gave up your resources or not. You said somewhere, but you wasn't really giving up your resources because you didn't want me to copy them. But it was cool, man. It was so dope.
The style thing, man. Like, yeah, Melvin, you've had the style since the beginning, man. I know.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, David's here, man. He hasn't gotten to weigh in on the dress code thing. Was that part of the requirement?
Well, yeah. If you wanted to be cool, you had to be cool. You had to.
Is David's voice on there? Is David there?
He's I think the Wi-Fi is really, really sparse for him. So but we get a beautiful view of his forehead. He hasn't lost one hair at all, which is like crazy.
Hey Kevin, what do you have?
Yep.
What I had to do was my browser was acting funny, so I switched from my phone to the desktop, and then everything worked. Is he on desktop or is he trying to use his phone?
I think he was trying to use his phone, but if he can hear us right now, hit your desktop, man. Hop in here. You know what? This is the best anticipation though, man. People are so they're all these people asking questions in the chat about him.
Yeah.
It was not a surprise at all, man. But
the only other guy that ever gets more inquiries of weirdness to me is everyone the Dave Abbruzzese freaks.
Yep.
Fans are like Dave. And one day, I was showing my film Rumble at the Palm Springs International Film Festival, and Matt Sorm came. And I had Matt come do a Q&A with me, and Izzy Stradlin showed up.
Really?
Like ghost. That's like,
wow.
David. And so Stradlin showed up and watched the film with me, and then I go, come on down. And he goes, oh, and to my surprise, he said, okay. So there's these photos of me, Matt, and Izzy, and people went bonkers. Like, even Slash called me, goes, he's alive. What was he like? But David's about the second most great rock and roll mystery out there besides Izzy. And actually, when David was staying at my house, Axl was bugging the shit out of him about joining Guns N' Roses. So there's another full circle.
Wow. Man, we've got to hear him speak in a moment because I got to hear about that. Man, Hey, Melvin, while you were logging in, Stevie was talking about funny auditions, and he mentioned the one that he felt like was the worst of his with Red Hot Chili Peppers. Do you ever have any that were just horrible standouts that you'd admit to?
Ooh, yeah. As a matter of fact, I auditioned for Seal one time.
Oh, really? Okay.
He met me. Seal and I met. I was playing at a club, and he came up to me, and and the guitar player, and he invited us both to come by his house, and had us learn some songs. Didn't even give us the CD. We had to go out and buy the CD. I mean, singles and stuff like that weren't, there were. I don't think there were any MP3s in 1999 or 2000, but it was just so anyhow, we went out, we learned all the stuff. We get to the studio and, we were ready to play, and, all set up, got there early, and so Seal shows up somewhere about like 45 minutes later than, when we were there. And so he just wanted to jam. He didn't want to go over the material. I was like, okay, that's cool. I get it, get warmed up. So we started playing and, and just like making shit up, just like vibing and everything, right? So all of a sudden, he calls the jam session to a halt after about, like seriously, we jammed for 30 minutes and the shit was fire. And so he goes, I'll be right back. So we're hanging out, waiting on Seal. Half hour goes by, another half hour goes by. Do the math, it's an hour by now. So 45 more minutes go by. I go, damn, I put my bass down. I'm going to the bathroom, right? I look and I see there's like the manager's office, and he's got his feet kicked up, with some fucked up loafers on. Oh. But, he's got his feet kicked up and he's got like an acoustic guitar in his hand and he's like, just jamming and talking to the manager of the studio. And so I kind of like, I'm hesitant to stick my head in, like just kind of ask him what's up. And so I kind of stuck my head in as soon as I did. He go, hey, you all right? He goes, hey, are you all right? I go, yeah, man. Yeah, just seeing what's up. He goes, I'll be with you in a minute. Okay. Go back there and we wait for yet another fucking 45 minutes. Do the math. This is how much time he's gone by. So he finally comes out and then says, hey, man, I just got this new car. He starts talking about his Mercedes and all this shit. Hey, you guys want to see my car? And we were just kind of like going, damn, what do we do? Yeah, I guess. Yeah. So we go and we look at his car and then we come back and instead of working on any of the songs that we had all prepared for, he starts showing us something. Right. And he's playing these chords, and I couldn't really make out what the bass note was because there's kind of like there's an A in there, and then there was like an E in there, and so it's kind of like I'm trying to figure out which one to go with. And so I asked him, "Hey man, so do you want me to play? What do you want me to do?" He goes, "It's no fucking mathematics, mate. It's just music. Play whatever." And I was, ooh. I said, Lord have mercy. I said, it's a kind of a weird chord. And so he said, it is not a weird chord. And then the guitar player goes, well, I was kind of wondering myself, Seal, it's kind of a weird chord. And he goes, that's it.
Wow.
Like Seal. That's how
wow.
It goes. Like that.
Seal's kind of outside. He's outside for sure. I played on that Human Beings album, Seal's album, Human Beings, and most of the time, all I did was spend time listening to him tell me great sex stories about Tyra Banks.
Oh yeah, I'd want to hear it.
She was a freak. She used to do it in the hallway of the hotels in case anyone came around the corner.
Oh. Heidi Klum and Tyra Banks, man. Seal's done okay, right? So
Seal's outside. I mean, Seal's a little bonker. I ran into him recently. I don't know, maybe it was a couple of years ago. He was sitting behind me on a plane and from Toronto back to, I don't know if I was going back to California or back to Texas. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, hey. He fucked my name up though. He goes, he remembers Stevie Gonzalez.
Oh.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Call me. Yeah, it's like that kind of shit.
Oh my God,
he's man. A motherfucker though. But I remember when I was with Terence and Darby, Terence said some shit to Seal, and Seal got all upset. He was like, Terence was like, something to do with we have to cross the barrier between white and black or something, some kind of thing like that. He was trying to say that was trying to be deep, and Seal didn't get it, and it got all uncomfortable.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we've seen some stupid stuff.
I remember, but back in that day, there was that quote that Terence mentioned in Rolling Stone, right? That said that he was going to be bigger than the Beatles or something like that, right? It was a comment that he's like, and
bigger than God or something.
Bigger than God.
Picture of him on a cover of Italian magazine, hanging like Jesus Christ.
Right. Honestly, man. I mean, we were talking Vibrator earlier. That song, when that song came out, that blew my mind. Right. I mean, he
Vibrator? Did I play on Vibrator? I don't remember if I played on Vibrator. And I'm on the album. I don't remember which songs I played on.
There was
it kind of sounded like you.
It did sound a lot like you, man.
If it wasn't me, because I had an influence on him pretty well at that time. We were pretty tight. We were playing a lot together. We were touring the world, And I knew him before I was even in Rod Stewart. I'd met him in London in '87 when I was getting flown over to the UK in '87 as a producer and as a guitar player, playing on all this weird stuff. And he was just coming out in '87 with his first album, The Hardline, and they offered me that tour. And I didn't want to do it because there was no rock guitar on the tour, and I was trying to get my own recording contract. But I was hanging out with him. I remember I went to Holland in 1987 for the opening of MTV Europe. They had a grand opening bash at the Roxy Theater in Amsterdam, and Terence opened for Big Audio Dynamite, and we had an insane night. And so I knew a lot of those cats. I knew when I was just a kid, even before I don't know if I met Melvin at that point yet because I was managed by BGP, but I don't remember when I first saw Dan Reed. I went and maybe saw him playing Long Beach first or something with
I think we connected in '88 after the band started touring, like late '88, summer of '88, something like that,
Yeah. Do you remember this, Melvin? So Melvin and the band went into the studio in New York City in 1989 with Nile Rodgers. And they were at Skyline, I remember. And I flew out to do the color code. There he is. Is he back?
He's back. There he is.
David looks so good. David looks so good. Holding God.
Yeah, what's up with that, man? You guys don't even age at all.
David looks like a blonde.
I'm gonna try and boost your levels a little bit, Dave. Let's see.
Yeah, no, I got it. I go down.
You got it. Okay. Yeah, man. The longer you stay out, the more comments people can make about you. So.
Yeah, well, I was hanging in the wing, waiting for the right amount of flattery.
Yeah.
level has to be at a certain par, right?
Man, I was breaking the fucking sweat trying to hook this shit up.
Man, I appreciate you doing it, man. I'm really glad to see you.
I pulled an iPad out from under the bed, and that thing worked.
David.
That's reserved for the.
David's usually a tech. Dave's a technological whiz guy, though. He really figures that shit out. He used to come to my house with all these cables and plug direct in, transfer this. Got to do all that shit.
Look at this. Look at this scene. Look at this scene.
Oh yeah, man. God, between all of you guys, you could pretty much own any of the studio recording stuff that needs to happen on the the biz. Dave, man, Stevie was just talking about it's funny because you don't say it like you're name dropping at all, but you're talking about different scenarios. I'm thinking, man, who have you not worked with, right? If we look at your discography and your music history, I mean, you were talking about Eddie. Eddie's the same way. Most people wouldn't realize how many people you guys have played with. And Melvin too. Oh, hey, look, Mel, there's your wife.
Oh no, that's my wife's daughter.
I couldn't see her well enough on the screen, but I was going to say it's either your wife or your girlfriend, but I didn't want to get you in trouble.
Right. Well, I won't be telling any Melvin tour stories then.
Wait a minute. That all happened before that was before he got married. Let's hear him.
Yeah. That's all fair game, brother.
Oh, there you go. Okay, I'm going to just tell you one.
Yes.
So we're in Berlin.
Yes.
David wasn't with us. He was supposed to be. Brian Tichy was with us. David was not on the drums, which he was supposed to be. And we had this kind of wild night, and I met this friend of mine, and then Melvin was at this club or something, and he says to me, I go, "What happened with that girl?" And he goes, "Well, she gave me that look." And I go, "That look? What's that?" He goes, "You know that look." He goes, "No." I go, "What's that look?" He goes, "That look like she was either going to give me some pussy or she was going to give me some pussy and some money." I fucking died. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, that goes in the Melvin book, man. Dave, man, there've been a whole bunch of comments, and one person. So Stevie brought up your connection with Axl and the Guns N' Roses thing. Somebody was just asking if they could hear about the 2-hour phone call you had with Axl,
where he said he was a witch and a warlock or some shit like that.
No, that was just that was the last time I heard from him. It wasn't really a phone call, like a chit chat. It was when, looking back, maybe I could have handled it better instead of sending him a.
Wait, when any story starts with that, we got to hear about this, man. This is good.
I sent him a fax that said some bullshit about I wanted to be a musician first and a rock star second. Man, I wish I would have kept that gig. That was pretty.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have been hanging out with Stevie for 3 years in LA, getting paid fat cash for doing nothing. But no, he called up and I think one of the first things he said was that I was the Dark Lord sent from somewhere to keep him from doing good in the world and this and that. But literally, it was like. It was a welcome to the jungle with different lyrics, really fast, over and over for 2 hours solid, with every other word being fuck.
Oh my God.
And I put the phone down on the table, and Sherry and I just sat there with our mouths open, just And I used to do the same thing when Andy Johns called me at 2 a.m. I just put the phone down and he'd be like, Pagey, I told Pagey maybe he should use the telly. Holy.
You come back 2 hours later and he's still saying the same thing.
Oh, no, I just, every 15 minutes, I take my headphones off and go, and then put the phone back down and put the headphones on. Oh, man, looks like somebody did some grocery shopping.
I was just thinking the same thing, man. Like Grubhub has been delivered.
We're big time foodies over here, you know?
Yeah, man.
He was very.
Yeah, in fact, I'm developing a cooking show right now, and it'll probably spring off here in about like the next 3.5, maybe 4 months and 2 weeks, and it's going to be called Spoonie's Grub and Groove. Featuring
3.5, 4 months and 2 weeks.
Well, that 2 weeks is like a little test period, so,
Oh, yeah.
Check that out. There's a little bit of elbow room to kind of get it together,
I love it. Spoonie's Grub and Groove. Is that what you said?
Spoonie's Grub and Groove, baby.
I love that, man. That
have you seen Aaron Comas, the Spin Doctors drummer? Great drummer. He cooked up some lamb shank last night.
What? Easter.
He busts out a little cooking show every once in a while. Man.
Wow. Is he in New York? Is he in New York still? That guy?
Yeah.
I saw him playing a little club. I don't know, in the early 2000s. I walked into a little club. He's playing with this freak out jazz guy, and it was kind of cool. And I go, hey, that's the dude from Spin Doctors.
Oh, Aaron's a monster, man. He's comes from that North Dallas or that North Texas arena. Mm-hmm. Greg Bissonette, Matt Chamberlain, Earl Harvin, that Mike Dillon, all those guys, and I keep in touch with Aaron, and he keeps posting all these things that make me rethink my decision to be an untrained drummer. He does that shit.
Yeah.
Listen, man.
Hold on. So one time, though, that Spin Doctors played after us at the Nijmegen Festival. We were all opening for Aerosmith, and he came on. But I'm telling you the truth, he hit a lot lighter than you, David, because I didn't even know the song started. The song started with like.
Yeah.
But it was like a stadium. There's 100,000 people there. So it took a while for the PA to get up because the drummer before that was Taylor Hawkins, who like broke every symbol song, right? And so he hit a lot softer than you, David. He had a real light touch where David had fucking Fred Flintstone drumsticks and fucking ba-boom,
Yeah.
Nobody hits harder.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, David hits hard, but David has a I played with a lot of drummers, some of the best drummers in the history of rock and roll. David's drumming, he sounds like he hits hard, but he still has a ton of touch because you can hear his ghost notes always.
Oh, yeah.
And what he's playing in between, he's like Clyde Stubblefield with muscle.
Yeah.
And that when we first met, that was the big thing.
Big wrist.
Yeah, he has got a big fucking wrist. Don't let him sock it, dude.
I'm telling you.
He told me he wanted to smash my fist. I've never wanted to smash someone's face in so bad that I had you. Look at that.
That sounds like your cousin Pondo, man.
Pondo, Pondo's out of his mind.
Yes, he is, man. I miss playing with him though. For you guys watching that don't know, Stevie's cousin Pondo is bassist with me with Flock of Seagulls, man. And so we've had many a Stevie conversation that I cannot reveal right here on the show, but I'll let Pondo do that. But Dave, man, I remember, dude, after shows, you would come home. You'd have to ice your hands so bad, your wrists, man. You had horrible carpal tunnel because you were cranking the shit out of your snare drum, and then you hit so hard that
It wasn't my snare, man. It was the problem is that I played thumb up on my ride cymbal.
Okay.
So that thumb was taking all the smack, you know.
Yeah.
It ended up that tendon just said. So
so you got that, you corrected your grip and you're not hitting it anymore?
Oh, hell no.
Yeah.
I just get more angry.
Yeah. Lots of ibuprofen, man. That's nuts.
Yeah.
The I'm curious to know.
It keeps me honest. I only play when I mean it, you know.
Yeah, man.
Practice.
You know, dudes, man. The coolest thing about having you cats here, my favorite thing about rhythm sections, man, is just like the unspoken bond that you have with players, right? And Stevie, I knew like before this lineup, I think before this lineup, you had TM, right, playing bass with you for a bit.
TM and Brian Tishy. And,
that's right. Yep.
Before that, it was Winston A. Watson Jr.
You've had some cats.
Well, this whole thing started was I had finished the second Color Code album. Then I went on tour with Duran Duran and Terence, and I came back and I was finishing the Sass Jordan Rats album, and I had to go do some dates, and Brian Tishy was no longer available, and so I took Tal Bergman, and I came back, and I had hired Tal for Terence, Trent, Darby, but he wasn't quite right for my music. He was funky as shit, but he didn't have enough punk rock in him.
Yeah.
And I was in desperate need of a drummer and a bass player because CJ had quit and I got TM his own record deal, so he was off on his own doing his own. And I'd known Melvin and Dan Reed Network had sort of stopped working, I think, at about that time, probably. I think it was. And I started thinking, what would be the most badass new band that would not only be amazing sonically, but would also be a great story, right? So I had met David at the NAMM show for 5 minutes, and this cat George, who worked for Pearl Jam, was always like, you need to call him. And so I just fucking called him. I was like, hey, David. He goes, hi. Like normal, right? And he's like,
right.
Here, I'll come down tomorrow. We were going to do a Jeff Beck tribute album. I was supposed to be playing a Jeff Beck tribute album. And so David, I go, you want to come do this thing with me? And he goes, sure, I'll fly down tomorrow or something like that. And the next day, bing dong, he's at my fucking door. It was like that. And he came in and we ended up not doing that album. I ended up doing it a year later with Abe Laboriel Jr. just because I got busy with David, because David came over and I had this vision of, wow, what would be a great bass player for David? And I just kept saying, Mel Brannon would be great. So I called Melvin, and we were good friends. And so Melvin, we all met in LA, right? Did Melvin do that first time? It was LA, right? In my bomb shelter.
And the first bass player you had me play with, I think, was his name Rick, the bass player, or something like that.
Was it? No, it wasn't Rick, the bass player. You mean the guy who played with Neil Young?
No, it was a dude who showed up in your bomb shelter. I'm pretty sure it was Rick, the bass player.
I don't even remember who that was, because there's all kind of guys auditioning, right? Probably. I'm probably auditioning guys, right? I mean, David, I'm not going to say I'm auditioning Dave Abbruzzese because he was the most famous drummer in the world at the time, but I had to see if Dave could. I'd only seen him with Pearl Jam. When I watched him, the last time I watched him with Pearl Jam, I flew down in Michael Wagner's private plane to San Diego, and I took a chick on a date, and we flew in his plane to see Pearl Jam at the San Diego Civic Center. And I just sit there the whole time watching David going, God, it's like David is just the machine of this band. He's the engine. I go, that guy's insane. So then George, what's George's last name? George
Webb.
George Webb. So George Webb's like,
yeah, we called him Puddin'.
Yeah. So George Webb's like, here's his number. Call him. So he shows up, and I'm thinking about bass players. Melvin shows up. So I get in a room with David, and the first thing that I used to ask every drummer was, you ever listen to James Brown, The Jungle Groove? Right. And that's what, now I had Brian Tishy, because he used to study the Jungle Groove album, but he played like Tommy Lee, but he could play like Clyde Stubblefield too. And it was kind of a cool combo, because you could play Sports Arena volume, but still hear all that funk, right? And so a lot of guys doing that so much back then. And so David knew that shit like a motherfucker. He had this special kit. David, rockstar David, now rich as shit, has a drum tech show up to my bomb shelter and bring a 26-inch kick drum.
Yes.
The doctor showed up with this badass fucking
That's so good.
kick. Was like everything was like, you know, like hang out. We could eat off the drums. It was like, and so David had this kit and it was insane. And next thing you know, we got into this fucking shit. It was just like, and it was just like, but with Pearl Jam, David Abbruzzese power. Right?
Yeah.
Melvin's fucking, it was a natural from Melvin. And so I knew right then, I go, oh, this is going to be the baddest ass trio of all times. It's going to be the baddest ass. And that's when we started to get ready. We actually might have, I don't know if you went home, you guys, and then came back and we went into the studio in LA, or if we went into the studio in LA and cut a few songs and then we got back together a month or two later in Seattle.
It happened exactly like that. We got together over in Burbank. We came back.
Yeah. Was that Cherokee?
No,
it was next to 7-Eleven.
It was at Pacifica Studios.
Oh, Pacifica, yeah.
With Paquito Ma across the street or something like that.
Yeah. Exactly.
I remember things by food.
Yeah. Exactly. So we cut a few tracks and it was dope. And Mel was playing piano, playing bass. It was completely experimental. And what had happened was I had just signed a brand new label deal in Japan where they gave me an astronomical amount of money, which gave me a lot of freedom. And it gave me the money to think about what I wanted to do. And it was my own label and I owned the masters. And so we cut like 19 songs. We cut a shitload of songs that I wasn't thinking about dollars so much. And we cut a lot of stuff really quickly, almost punk rock style, right? I mean, there were some times where David would come in while I was mixing and go, "What's this song?" And
when I got the record, I still to this day, Jock, that's me. I did that. We did that.
Yeah.
I love the conversations between you. The banter between you two in the studio was just like there was never a fucking dull moment, man. Like I would show up like, what are these motherfuckers gonna talk about today?
Man, I was all into my hippy dippy fucking, you know, music for music's sake, you know, the things you can say when you have
let's play music for music's
sake.
By the way, I'm rich as
business, motherfucker.
It's easy to play music for music's sake when you're rich as shit.
Yeah.
You see what I mean, Kev?
Yeah.
Right I this is a little microcosm of like how the studio was, and it was so awesome.
You were recording. Hey, I'm going to tell you this real quick.
You hit record, Melvin.
This is kind of like Dave Abbruzzese in a nutshell. Okay, so when in 1987 I was opening up for Animal Logic, which was Stuart Copeland's band with Stanley, right? And at Soundcheck, I was a huge Police fan. This moment reminds me so much of David, right? And Stuart Copeland's they're playing some song, and Rusty Anderson's playing guitar, and you know we're all young, and I'm watching the Sykes, I'm watching Stuart because I was a massive Police fan growing up in San Diego. Yeah, and they do this song, and I don't know what kind of song it was. I didn't get that band at all. But then Stanley Clarke says, you know, in a very Melvin-y kind of a way, "Okay, cats." You know, all music, because Melvin got like can play that jazz vibe, right? He understands that game. And Stanley Clarke says, "That was really good." He goes, "But let's try it one more time, but this time, let's do it for the music." Oh. And I thought to myself, what the fuck is that? And then Stuart Copeland takes the drumstick and goes, blam, and it goes flying in the air, and he goes, "Do it for the music? What the fuck is that supposed to mean?"
That is,
and I was like, "Yeah, Stuart."
That is so not rock and roll, man. Oh my God.
David might have been wearing Birkenstocks, but he knew his punk rock for sure.
Yeah, man. Birkenstocks, patchouli.
Yeah.
What are those rubber shoes? Remember that Melvin used to wear them rubber shoes before Dave probably had an endorsement. David probably owned the company. And rubber shoes he used to wear.
No, I bought those on my first motorcycle trip.
Man, I had a feeling once you guys all three were on camera, all I had to do was wind you up and set you free, man. This is if only social media was around when you guys were touring, you know, some of the stuff released live, this would have been your reality show, right?
Yeah. The making of the tracks was dope because David was tough. David was on my ass a lot, actually. But everything we recorded was like going, when you record a record and sometimes it takes a while, you go home later and you replace things and fix it, and then it starts to sound like a record. We were cutting shit that sounded like a fucking record. I mean, the shit was going like what the record really was. It was, we're running drums through Fairchilds and all this stuff, and it was just really sounded like a band. It really sounded like a band.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a weird time because what year was that? Was it 94, 95 now?
95.
95.
Okay, so by that time there was this weird shift in music where you didn't have so many rules then either. We could kind of get us outside, so we kept getting into all this outside, 4 and 8 minute jams at the end of songs that were getting all trippy and weird, and then we go straight into some funk and it was heavy. Yeah. And we didn't have so many rules. And on that album we used a lot of acoustic guitar too, if I recall. David brought a bunch of acoustics and that's where Melvin came in handy, because Melvin was thought more melodically on the bass than just a guy playing funk music. So when we do that stuff, there's a track on that album where I flipped Melvin and me on my acoustic guitars backwards. We did the track without David, and then David, with no click track, put on headphones, and it was and he played to it perfectly.
God.
And it sounds like we recorded awesome. The whole track's like, and I remember that guitar tech I had, his girlfriend came in the studio and she goes, "Is it supposed to sound that way? It sounds like devil music."
The backward masking.
Oh yeah, because Melvin's bass.
I'm taking, I got, it's one of the biggest pleasures I've had in a long time. Stevie sent me the tracks of some of the songs from this record. Yeah. So I'm remixing them, and I go into the studio and I'm working with guys that have never even seen tape. I mean, they've been doing this for years and years, and they've never once cut tape.
Okay.
And we put these tracks up and hit play, and just levels up, no EQ, no nothing, and they're just going, "Holy shit, this sounds amazing." Yeah. I mean, I'm mixing these things, and I'm not having to do any EQ or anything. Kevin Smith is, that's back when you recorded songs to tape.
Right.
You didn't just record sounds to tape.
Right.
And then the song later. And man, it blew my mind to see these guys who, up until that moment, I'm thinking are skilled, well-rounded, and all of a sudden they're just like, they've never heard big, rich sounds from tape, much less songs, because they're used to hearing ideas and then chop, so edit. It's been fucking a pleasure, man.
You couldn't do that. And we would cut tape a lot, but you couldn't do it like you do it now. I mean,
right.
You had to have your. We actually rehearsed. I mean, remember we would rehearse the songs and then go play.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. We were all definitely on point like that, And
man, I remember sitting inside of the lounge. There's a picture of the three of us. I'm sitting there. I think I got a book, and I'm wearing fucking looking like I'm about to go to a freshman in college fucking school, and Stevie's over there with the fucking funky shit, and Melvin's got Melvin on, and we would talk through the ideas and be like, okay, I'm going like this, and Melvin's going like that, and I'm hitting my leg, and then we just go in and just start playing.
Kind of, yeah. Remember, we'd work it out with acoustic guitar. Melvin's sitting there with a bass, and you do that, and we'd go in the studio and it's just fucking cut hoochie toad. It was just like, boom.
Oh. What? That's how that came about.
But hold on,
almost all of them came about.
David, none of that shit would have worked ever. When we got to that studio, Ironwood, or it was Iron.
Yeah, Ironwood
studio. Right, we pulled up the studio. I pulled up the studio. I flew in from California. David was living in Seattle, and Melvin drove up from Portland. But fucking Mel Brannon was sitting out front with a gangster lean and a hat on and a fucking giant sky blue Cadillac.
That's right. 68 coupe, baby.
all fucking Mac Daddied out. He was all leaned out too, like just waiting.
Yep.
Just waiting, waiting on my girl.
Man, that album, it really brought me out of a funk because getting shit canned and all. I remember going in and I mean, I I didn't know, looking back, I mean, I understand now, my confidence was a little shook, you know, not my confidence in my playing, but my confidence as a person, you know,
Sure.
I was pretty lost, you know, and, man, that record, I mean, I still revisit it today as it was the record and the time that, I mean, that's probably where a lot of my back and forth with Stevie. Oh, wait a minute. I got to interrupt the story with one of my favorite Stevie quotes ever. The one that I hear more often than not. Every time we work together, he pisses me off. He just rides me, tells me, no, man, you do this, get it, you'll get it. And I'm just like, "Arr." And then I say, man, what the fuck? And he says, it's good for you, David.
I am a dick to drummers. That's a fact.
Oh man, you're
such
awesome.
an asshole to drummers.
You I mean, I couldn't be more pleased, and I mean, some of the best work that I did as a player was on your music, you know, because
That's awesome.
you got me to that point, you know.
Dave,
And except for the one time that you didn't, you left me flapping in the wind, and that was when we were at John, that big dude up near Magic Mountain.
Jean-Marie Horvat.
Yeah.
what's that all about?
But we still got some good tracks out of that.
We got great tracks, but I thought David was going to maybe die. I'm not kidding. He had a cot outside, remember, and he was slaying in a cot. And David was that was almost at the pinnacle of your rebirth.
Well, let me ask you. Okay, Dave, I got to ask you this, man. And I'm glad you brought this up, and I'm not going to get somber about this. I had Rudy Sarzo on Thursday, right? And Rudy and I were talking about first the Randy Rhoads episode, right? I mean, with Randy, he's on the bus. Randy, you know, the plane clips his bus. Randy and he were best friends, right? And so he talked about how he quit Ozzy at that point because he lost his joy for playing, and then, you know, he went on to Quiet Riot. If you think about that guy's career, right? Like first Randy Rhoads, he loses Kevin DuBrow, he loses Frankie Banali, he loses Ronnie James Dio, like all these guys, like these incredible influences and dear friends of his. I asked him about the rebirth that Stevie's talking about and where he found joy to play again. And Dave, I mean, you and I knew each other before all that shit went down. And then I didn't get to see you for a few years, you know, and I knew how, and I don't know if you remember this, man, but my feeling about you and I met right at the beginning of the rise, right, in Montana. And you changed my life, man. The way that you were not only humble before shit had happened, but your influence, even after things started taking off, when you had Jen and I come out and stay with you, you were so humble, dude. The humility was so incredible. And I felt like when all that shit went down, I needed you to know I could care less about Pearl Jam, dude. You were the guy that I connected with, man, not just as a drummer, but as a human being, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I understand how confidence would get just completely rocked because at that point, even though you guys were at that height, there were a couple of times that you and I, we caught each other up on the way down in Boulder, Colorado. I went down and hung with you there. And I remember there was some shit going on that, you know, you were catching grief, even in the studio out there on the Versus record, where camaraderie is such an important part of this music business, the hang. And I felt as a fledgling musician when I could watch you kind of being oppressed, right? The Dave Abbruzzese that in your spirit was oppressed long before you were ever out of that band, right? And for the Pearl Jam fans that are watching in this chat, man, what you guys might not know is that, you know, the Dave I got to know at the beginning, this dude was the guy that Stevie and Melvin are talking about, the guy that walks in off the street. He's humble, he's gracious. You know, you have the spirit about you that's just very endearing. How did you find a way to kind of pick yourself up? You knew your plan was there, but how did you find the will to get out there and establish your name again? Because it's an identity crisis, right?
Well, yeah, because that was the thing. I mean, you know, Pearl Jam, the oppression, you know, it wasn't, my playing and my spirit are like this, you know?
Yeah,
and
right.
those guys never ranked or ragged on my playing, and I never really felt like I doubted my ability to play. But it was like it affected my heart, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the thing that made me feel like I could accept, you know, compliments, or even that I had, you know, this. It was a self-worth thing, you know. I mean, I grew up with headphones on because what was outside of the headphones I didn't really get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so once the headphones came off and I was in, you know, in this bigger picture, luckily we worked so much that I didn't have time to sit around and do that. But yeah, the camaraderie of Stevie and Melvin and the GRO guys and Sherry and just, you know, the people, my friends, I mean, I put them to the test, you know.
Yeah.
I went off the deep end too.
Yeah.
Way off the deep
end. Ask Bernard Fowler.
Well, yeah, because you guys were working with Bernard too.
Oh man, Bernard Fowler got a free show, man. He came
Stevie,
up to my house.
Stevie, your friend Dave is fucked up.
Yeah.
You won't believe what he did today. David started pushing the envelope after a while. When he was recording with us, it was just the beginning of. Then he'd come down and stay with us in LA, stay with me, and then he discovered. I took him to a party at the Four Seasons with the Rolling Stones, and he made some new friends. And then that motherfucker was too much money, too much good time. Ooh, where's David?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. You know what? I mean, the people that get too much money because money makes you more what you are, right? I mean, if you got
freedom,
yeah, but if you have shitty character,
discover who you are if you survive it. Yeah,
if you can survive.
Man, honestly, but yeah, I mean, if you're a shitty character going in with too much money, then you know it just makes you a much bigger asshole, and we've seen that in politics, right? So, but
gives you a license, yeah.
You know, but man, I mean,
never give a crazy person a couple $1,000,000. That's for sure, right, Steve?
I'm telling you, Dave. It was telling you, Melvin was the, and Melvin ain't like Melvin's all that normal, but Melvin was the thread in the middle that kind of kept shit all smooth and happy. Melvin always joke, and Melvin's always smiling.
I was there for the entertainment, man. Y'all. I was just like, I love these cats, and I love being right in the middle as the glue to these motherfuckers. You know, it kind of reminded me of my own secret personalities, my left and my right shit. You know,
right?
It's just kind of like, ooh, yeah.
You know, I had to do a record once with
the devil
Buddy
and the angel had our faces on them.
But I had to do a record once with Buddy Miles on drums and Bootsy on bass, a whole album with Bill. And it was almost what maybe trained me for the sessions with David and Melvin, because Buddy Miles was out of his mind, but he was insane. I mean, he was on a whole nother level, right? And then Bootsy would be like, oh, you know, we're listening to some song, Good to Your Ear Hole, that we ended up recording later with Mudbone from Funkadelic. But at the time, Laszlo wanted us to cover the song, and Buddy Miles, you know, these great. My point I'm getting at is great musicians are not normal. They think a little bit outside, or like they're a little bit crazy if they're truly great. Same with actors, I think. And so Buddy Miles was like, "Wow, what's that track? That sounds cool. What's the guy playing there?" And Bootsy's like, Buddy, that's you playing drums. Don't you remember we cut that song at that before?" He goes, "It is." So I was ready for Dave Abbruzzese after making an album with Buddy Miles with Bill Laswell. It was like,
oh yeah.
But Buddy Miles yelled at me too, but never threatened to pound me. And David,
those thick wrists.
I don't know if Melvin would jump in and save my ass.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, Melvin just take notes, man. He get some pictures,
man. You know, it was great entertainment, and we.
Man, I get passionate when I'm mixing. I get passionate, you know. We had 6 days to mix the whole record. It was about that 4th day that I snapped.
Yeah. David mixing. What's your budget? Here's my budget. Okay, he must have spent my budget on that mixing of the album just on the Mercedes Benz. He rented.
Let me Like, I got to ask you guys. I know that I've done this a little bit. I did this with you guys, with Melvin and Dave before, but I love asking people about their guilty pleasures. Man, I mean, cats that know you, Stevie, what would they be surprised to know about?
I don't hide too much. I don't think, do I? I mean, I'm pretty much I'm the kind of guy who, when I was younger, I would walk through the wall and walk through fall off the balcony. I mean, I never was like the guy that was the closet guy that you never knew. Like, I had no idea he was out of his mind like that. I pissed everyone off when I was young. I was too intense when I was young. I was way too intense. I mean, did you see that piece in Kerrang last month that Taylor Hawkins said, and he talked about me and how I broke his ass so bad, but he said, in the end, it was good for him. But I was a real asshole when I was young, and I was really too driven. I wasn't enjoying. I wasn't remembering to enjoy these experiences. Like now, when I listen back to some of the songs that we cut, I'm like, wow, that's actually really fucking good. And I remember at the time going, oh, something's wrong. It's fucked up still. I know it. Oh, the hi-hat or the fucking sucks on this. I forgot to enjoy it. I forgot. I was making lots of money and I was doing really well. I think because I was bitter because I was never successful in America, and none of my friends, there was no internet, so nobody knew how successful I was around the world. I come home and I wasn't nobody because I was still playing with some of the most famous musicians in the world, but it was like, but people didn't know I was successful. And Melvin and I we'd go to Europe and we'd go to Berlin and we'd go to all these places. We'd be sold out and packed, but nobody knew it because there was no internet. And I come home, I remember Steve Lukather asked Jimmy Dunlap, where'd you get all his money? He doesn't sell any records. And Jimmy goes, no, in Japan and Germany and these places, he's doing really well. And I think Lukather thought I was a drug dealer.
Oh, yeah. And Luke's like, where do I get some of that, man? Man. So I love hearing that, because I think wisdom comes with age, right? So we think about the stuff that you appreciate now. You talk about just not taking the time to really embrace and have fun with it and enjoy what you had. Dave, do you feel like you kind of were in that boat too? I mean, back in the PJ days, did you feel like it was just more of a struggle to work at it instead of enjoying the moments?
That was the thing. I tried and made an effort to enjoy all the moments. My battles were more internal, I think, as time went on, as to why no one else was, It bothered me that it seemed like, it was like, why aren't you motherfuckers enjoying this?
Yeah.
And why am I in trouble for enjoying it,
Yeah, you did get in trouble for enjoying that.
Yeah, I got fired for enjoying it.
That's the truth, man. I remember. Yeah, dude. You got shit because you were a nice guy, a friendly guy. I've had some of that myself. I've gotten yelled at for smiling too much and for hitting my cymbals like Dave Abbruzzese, actually. So both of the.
I know you didn't get in any trouble for that hair, not with Flock of Seagulls, did you?
No, man. Yeah, I'm trying to work on that now, but nobody gives Steve or Melvin shit about smiling too much, man. Melvin, I've never seen you on stage without a smile on your face, dude.
Hell no.
I think.
Hey, did you ever see him on stage?
Both of those guys, you got that kind of talent.
Did you ever see Melvin Brannon on stage with a big afro wig?
Oh, the Aphrodisiacs, yeah.
Showed up to my gig, and I thought that was his real hair. I didn't know he was fucking rocking a big ass wig.
Yeah.
It was like Sly Stone at Woodstock, like a motherfucker. It was bouncing and shit. And I didn't know it was a wig. And
even if you weren't doing that gig, Mel, I know you would have worn the wig anyway. But I know that you probably appreciated every moment you've been on stage, Melvin. But how about guilty pleasures, man? What would somebody be surprised about with you?
Damn, man. I don't know if.
Oh, you can't talk about it?
Yeah. I have to take all out, Go find everybody listening so that they don't spread it,
We're not talking fetish.
Oh man, that reminds me. You remember that time when we were on tour and we were doing the bus tour? We didn't have hotel rooms, and so it was like day 6 or 7 in, and man, I just wanted a motherfucking shower. I wanted a motherfucking shower. I was like, hey, man, I got to take a shower today. It's got to happen right now. It's got to happen right now. And so we talked to, I forget who, was it Woody that was the tour manager?
Yeah, Woody. You're talking about in Europe, right?
Yes. Yeah, we were in Germany somewhere. And so Woody comes back and he goes, okay, we found you a place. And so he goes, what you do is, after sound check, you go up these flight of stairs here, and then there's a green door. You knock on that green door, and they'll let you shower. So after sound check, truck up the stairs there, find the green door, knock on it, and all of a sudden this big old 50-foot, big old huge woman opens the door and says, hi, are you here for your appointment? And I said, I just I was supposed to take a shower. You know, they were supposed to get in touch with somebody about me taking a shower so I get clean from my getting. And she was like, okay, let me see. Come this way. And I walk past her, and then she's got like this old guy tied up, and she's slapping him and kicking him and cussing him out in German. And I was just like, holy fucking shit.
It was in the Reaper Barn. We had it in the Reaper Barn, right? It had to be in Hamburg.
Yeah, it was up in Hamburg, sir, man. And I was just like, wow.
Only in Germany.
Yep, that's God. Yeah, those aren't guilty pleasures, man. Those are like, you know, people's wet dreams, man.
Yeah, right. I guess I kind of got off base a little bit just because he said fetish, and then like, okay, I went into that.
Hey, Melvin Brannon was a good-looking cat up there. The girls used to love some Melvin Brannon I'd watch that crowd.
I still hear about it.
Guys out of the way in front of me is trying to stare at my fingers to get some of them girls Melvin has over there watching.
God, man, you know, they're still like that. Portland is full of ladies that say, man, if only Melvin were still here and available, you know?
You know what? One of my guilty pleasures was snare drums and just being able to be myself around these monsters like Stevie and Bernard and Carmine, all these people that like I'd go to LA and Jeff Sessler would meet me at the airport with a rental car. You got your sticks, and we go straight to some studio, and I'd walk in and it'd be like Reeves Gabriel and Carmine Rojas and Bernard and Freddie Sessler, and I was like, what the fuck? And we just start playing. And Stevie, do you remember this dinner where I asked the waitress if her snapper was fresh or frozen?
Smooth talker, Dave. Smooth talker.
You got it. There's something that what he's saying about this is like an unspoken thing you don't hear about that much anymore. But in the 90s, in LA, if you were in a certain clique, there was no better place that you could be. Like you could say, you go sit down and have dinner with, there's Danny Sabers remixing Madonna down the street, and you coming over, and there's Reeves Gabrels from Bowie, and I'm there, and Fowler's in with the Stones, and it was like Dave Abbruzzese, and it was like a club. Slim Jim Phantoms having a party down the road from the Stray Cats, and it was a clique. Right. It was an amazing time in LA if you were in that game. Right. You know, like the time we played the Viper Room and Michael Hutchins sat in and Adam Duritz sat in and Ivan Neville, and then Billy Gibbons walks out of nowhere and gets on stage. You know, it's like there was in LA during those late 90s times. It was an incredible time to be in LA. Yeah. So like Dave, I'd show up, and you know the shit that would freak most people out was just part of our normal hangout, playing music with these kind of top level dogs, right? And Dave was the top dog, so they loved Dave. And so he came right into the game, like boom, you know what I mean? And it was an amazing time in the late 90s if you could survive the madness of all the partying and all the other shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. All of you guys have actually survived and weathered that storm. LA is different now, man. It's crazy, right? I mean, Melvin, like
I don't even know what LA is anymore. You know,
it's the truth.
I don't even know what it is.
Are you living there still?
I'm up in Ventura. I'm about an hour and change outside of it. But when I go down there, like I had a residency that I was doing about a year and a half or two ago, and it was just right around the corner from the Viper Room. And on break, I would go up and try to catch remnants of what used to be, you were just talking about. And bro, it ain't there anymore. There was none
Yeah.
of that. It was that shit vaporized long ago.
It's crazy.
Say
All the hotels now, man, you know, all those clubs, like it's nuts to see all those clubs going away.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I don't even go into Hollywood unless I have to. Like if I'm going in to play a benefit with Sorm, or I did a benefit at the Palace with Sorm and the DeLeo brothers and Sammy Hagar and Steve Stevens and Kenny Aronoff and a bunch of us played, and it was fun because the boys were all there. But once you left there, it was no good. I usually just stay out at the beach by my old beach house, in Marina Del Rey, and I go in and out when I have to, and I stay out at the beach.
The energy just isn't there, though. I mean, I remember the first time that I came to LA was in the mid '80s, and it was Dan Reed Network. We had opened up for the Bus Boys, and we had a shitload of record people out to come. You know, it was like our big audition moment for all the big guys. And I remember, like, before that, the night before that show, we had went out. Somebody took us out on the town and stuff. And I mean, man, it was a fucking zoo. There was so much this and so much energy. You didn't even need to be in a club.
No.
Right.
It was at the street. It was cool on the sidewalk. It was happening.
Yeah, it was cool on the sidewalk, you know.
You know, it's interesting, man. I mean, that era, because I think, I mean, Dave will probably attest to this. I mean, cities have a culture, you know, and I think Seattle lost that culture of, you know, not like, so you had 10 years after the Strip was hot, Seattle had that vibe going on, especially downtown, right? And Melvin, you guys were up and down, you know, Seattle all the time too. The network was always up there, and you guys were bigger, it seems like, in Seattle even than you were in Portland, which is hard to imagine. Yeah. But it's weird to go downtown Seattle now and have all those clubs be wiped out. I think like cities where their culture is hot at one point, I couldn't tell you a city in the US right now that has a real vibe. Like, I mean, you know, Nashville's a different vibe than it used to be, right? I mean, Austin's a different vibe than it used to be, not including the pandemic.
Austin is over. I live in Austin, and it was bitching when I first moved here, and you could see Junior Brown playing on a Sunday afternoon. You know, beer was $2. It's all tech guys with beards now, and all the cool people moved away. And my house has gone up like 500%, which I didn't move here for that. I moved here so I could go to this cool school and I could be in a mellow environment. But now it's terrible. It's invaded. It's become massively crowded. And it's
you said the magic word, text. I mean, tech. And I think it's too much text got in the fucking way. Too much tech. You know,
too much tech ruined a lot of towns because with that tech stuff comes a lot of guys that are highly intelligent, but they don't have any kind of social skills or any kind of art skills.
Right.
But they got all this money, right? So then it kind of screws everything up.
Yeah, the culture that kind of goes along with it, man. I mean, Mel, when you and I were talking last time, actually, when you and David were both on the show, we were talking about your formative days, right? When you were first coming up in Portland, and Portland had this different vibe where, like culturally, you still had, you know, small town feel, but you had real artistic culture to Portland, right? There was a real vibe that was creative and inspired. And I think, I don't know, man, it's strange. And, you know, I don't mean to sound like a fucking old guy, right? But you think about like what technology has done everywhere, you know, like this screen thing that we're doing. I'm grateful to be able to hang with us right here, but the face-to-face thing, not just the pandemic, right? It's that people have gotten disconnected from each other, you know, and they're not going out as much. They're not going out to try new foods or, you know, go to art galleries or any shows. I mean, you know, people would rather stay home and watch Netflix, you know?
And a prime example, like I put up this song that I did. It was an idea Sean Smith had, and I kind of flushed it out. And there was a gathering this last weekend, or I guess yesterday, at his favorite spot in memory of his passing. And I just thought it'd be cool to just pop this song out. You know, I put it on YouTube as a gift, just specifically for hoping that, you know, it would be played at this little gathering. And because it's a beautiful song, and the words he's singing, it really touched my heart. And when I posted it, the exchange that I had with the person that he left his catalog to, you know, it's like people communicate now with text, and they imagine what the other person sounds like without ever even hearing their voice or knowing where they're coming from. So if they go into it with this like little band of animosity, they're going to read your words totally wrong, and they're going to fire something back at you. And if you get that back and you got a little fear that they're going to respond a certain way, then all of a sudden this exchange is going on that's just not real. And I noticed that happens all the fucking time, and it's made for this element, like on the internet, man. People are just being dicks to each other, just hardcore. I see people calling, it's like, yeah, cunt, blah 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 blah. It's like, Jesus fuck, holy shit. I read things that if somebody were to say that to somebody in front of me, I'd be defending them. You know what I mean? It'd be like, yo. But now it's just like it's commonplace,
Yeah, the anonymity.
And
social condom is too thick.
What was that, Mel?
I said the social condom is just a little too thick these days.
Oh, right.
You know what it is? Hey, all it is I was in South America 2 days ago, and I wrote something on the internet about how I loved it because people are shooting their mouth off on the internet. When I was a kid, if you shut your mouth off like that, someone punched the fuck out of you, right? Cops would come over and say, "Break it up, boys, break it up." There'd be no lawsuits. There'd be no go to jail. It's like, hey, come on, boys, shake and make friends. Hug it out. Mugs are bad as can be. They can talk all the shit they want because they never get cracked in the fucking mouth. Right. And so in South America, it's like rough justice. You know what I mean? You said some shit. What you say? Like, I didn't mean it.
Right.
Typing. Yeah. But you know what I mean? So now cats online, I just can't stand it. Everybody's a badass. Everybody's a fucking gangster.
Yeah, right.
You're so right. So right.
You know what? I'm hopeful. And
the more badass they are online, the less they get out.
That's true. This is what I hope, man. I'm hopeful that because people have been shut away for over a year where they haven't been able to hang out with each other, they're going to appreciate each other's company more. And so when we are able to kind of get out from our houses, I'm hopeful, man, that a majority of people will be around each other appreciating like each other's perspectives, because that's the thing, man. We don't look at each other's perspectives. Well, when I say we, it's a generalization, man. But people that engage in discourse online, they're not looking to have a conversation. They just want you to hear what they think, and whether it's politics or anything else, they just want to argue their point. And you never see it. I rarely see somebody go, "Oh yeah, I kind of see what you mean by that." I hadn't thought of, Dave's, your situation is exactly like that. The Sean Smith tune you worked on, dude, was killer. It was a beautiful song, man. And I knew the sentiment behind it. I know that all the people that got your back in that whole exchange, they got it too. But if one person misunderstands because they read it in text or they even come in, they speculate, nobody asks the question, "Hey man, what was your idea behind that?" Right? Nobody, they're afraid to have a conversation. And that's, that vulnerability, that authenticity. Stevie, you and I were talking about this even before we went live, man. My favorite thing about having a conversation is getting to know somebody who they really are. Well, you were talking about, you and President Obama, right? Like, you didn't have to talk politics. You could talk about his kids. You could talk about your kids. You could talk about...
Just talk about normal shit. I mean, one time I would tell you what, I was playing basketball with David Abbruzzese once in Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
All in the afternoon, Ron Reagan Jr. pulled up and started shooting hoops with us. Hey, Ron, and they were shooting shit, and I was sitting there going, "That's fucking Ron Reagan Jr." He's telling us a story about my parents Abbruzzese egg, and it wasn't even personal. And I'm thinking, egg. It was like, and I thought so there's a perfect example. Dave Abbruzzese and Ron Reagan Jr. were just hanging out shooting hoops, and we were shooting. Oh, yeah. So people can be real normal if you can break past that bubble, right?
Ron Reagan Jr. is a big fan of Dave's, man. I saw him at Boulder at your show.
That's where we met.
He was in the bar. He was in the bar with Gibby Haynes, man. Like Butthole Surfers and Ron Reagan Jr. together at Dave's show.
Hey,
that's where we met. Gibby Haynes and Ron and Al Jorgensen. Al was doing an interview with Pearl Jam, and we weren't doing interviews unless they were creative. So Al came up with this idea that he was going to weigh us with and without our wallets.
Oh,
oh shit.
And I'm up there. I went up there early. It was back in the day when I showed up early. And so Al and Gibby are talking about this. They're going to stage an OD. Al's going to come out of the bathroom and hit the floor, flop around and all this. And I'm thinking, what, in front of Ron Reagan Jr., just to add some electricity to the interview. And I'm thinking, oh shit, I don't want to be a part of this, man. And so Ron and his wife came in, and they were sweet as can be. And I'm just thinking, oh, this is gonna suck. Luckily, though, I won't tell you how, but I diffused the situation and it all worked out. But yeah, that was when I met Ron. Was in Boulder. It was a trip, and Ron's wife was Doria, bless her heart, she passed away, but she was a psychiatrist or whatever, and I was going through all the shit with Pearl Jam, so it was kind of like our walk down to the bus. I remember they came back to my hotel room with me while we were chit-chatting. And this is back when I had a duffel bag, and to unpack I would just go like that, so there's like underwear on the lamp. Oh shit, gathering up all my stuff. But yeah, they were incredible, and I have to actually thank Gibby Haynes and Al Jorgensen for introducing me to two of my favorite people.
That's so good, man.
Reagan Jr. was cool, man. I thought so. To me, that was a shock. I thought we're shooting hoops with Ron Reagan Jr. Hey, by the way, you had underwear coming out on your lamp. Melvin Brannon did too, but they weren't his.
Yeah, those are all on sale on eBay, right?
He said you weren't gonna talk about that.
Underwear is all thrown at him and everything.
God, man, you are so happily married right now, which is a good thing, man. That keeps you safe.
He was happy then too.
Hey.
He wasn't.
Well, I hit the lottery, so I figured, what? Hey,
You both did. You both did.
Yeah, good,
man.
Don't get no better.
God, man, that record that you guys put together, it was long enough now ago that generations come back around, man. Dave, you were talking about, I think you had some stuff that you were working on with Stevie. Is there a chance that the three of you guys are going to put something out at any point? Another thing.
I have a feeling that after this conversation, there's going to be a conversation.
I think.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm going to tell you right now, and I don't mean to be the fucking dickhead. I don't mean to be an asshole, but Melvin, you ain't bringing that fucking stand-up bass to these sessions. You can get back to that.
Wait. Come on.
Wait, hold on. Oh, there we go. Yeah. Stevie, this is what I was talking about. We need to have a conversation, man. You can't be so shut. You can't shut off your mind to something new.
Oh, wait, I got one too. I ain't done yet. Hold on.
Oh, all right, here we go. Oh! Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. We've got Dave's got one too. Hold on a sec. Here, hold on. Oh, look at this.
Oh, what? Tuning bases.
Oh my God. Look at that, man.
I ain't got one. I wish I had one. I don't got one. Maybe I got one in my gear room.
Oh, good. I love that, man. Dave, do you remember going up in your attic and digging out all those old drums for you and I to jam? Like you had your old Ludwig stuff, and then you had your D-dubs and new ones, and you were gracious enough to take the floor tom to sit on because you only had one throne back at home. But
I only needed one.
That's all you need, man. That's true. Yeah. I loved that you had just drums everywhere, man. You still have it that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? You had there was a Keplinger snare that you had. It was the first Keplinger I ever saw, man. It blew my mind how that, there was no mic needed, dude. It was the loudest snare drum, but beautiful sensitivity. You still have that?
Man, I'm just going to go ahead and say it out loud. I smoked most of that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was fun.
There's a guilty pleasure right there, man. That's
I'll tell you something though.
Look at Melvin.
Here's the true test, and you know what, Kevin, you're and I
want to be.
I don't want to keep saying this to sound like I'm bragging, but I have played with some of the greatest drummers that have ever lived, from Tony Thompson to Abbruzzese to, a gazillion of them, right?
Yeah.
Fleetwood or whatever. And Abbruzzese could play on a 26-inch kick with a front head, and you could feel a subtlety and also a power with that. Yeah. With a 26, that's the real test. That's when like Kunta Kinte got his wiener snipped. You know what I mean? That's when he became a man.
Right.
Circumcision happened. And so when you get that 26-inch kick and you get that tune just right. And Tishy also does that. And that's when the real guy can come in with the 26 and make it speak, but not just make it pound your head off.
Yeah.
I mean, make it play music.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Best of a man.
You know, Melvin's had an opportunity to play with some of the greatest drummers as well, man. I would be remiss if I didn't say that Dan Pred and Dave Abbruzzese are two of my biggest influences.
Dan
Pred, man. I love him so much, man. Yeah. I would what was that, Mel?
He don't look like he's hitting hard. He hits hard, but he doesn't look like he's hitting hard.
Yeah.
And it's like all in this rhythm. He's just all kind of like smiling and having a good time, but his shit is like crack, crack, crack. But it only looks like he's going crack, crack.
You know what that is? You know what that is, Melvin. Yeah, that's the ex-wife coming through Dan Pred right there, man. I know it. I know, man. I said it. Sorry, Dan. But,
that's awesome.
Yeah, but you and I both know that's the truth.
Yeah,
like
he would be cracking the fuck up right now.
No, he wouldn't. He'd be calling me going, dude, you made my life hard again. God damn it. But, I remember his story, and you guys could probably all relate to this, man. Like, he was so excited about the first decent Dan Reed network check that he went out and he got as close to a rock star car as he could possibly get. Kind of like Dave, you got your first, you got your Infinity that time, right? That was the first upgrade from your little Datsun truck. Or you had that little truck from Texas. So you got your Infinity. Dan Pred went out and he got himself a Fiero. And that was as close to a Ferrari as he could get. And he got the Fiero, and then as soon as he went to Europe, he gets the call from his ex-wife saying, I got some good news and bad news. The good news is we're having a baby. And the bad news is the baby wouldn't fit in a Fiero, so I sold it and I got a Ford Escort station wagon. And and that to me was like, all right, man, maybe this rock and roll business just doesn't good for families. But the
day you got to bust out a minivan is the day that you might just want to consider suicide.
That's the truth, man. Yeah. And any of you guys still have
got a minivan and it looked like a space mobile and had all taken apart. And then he got this camper van and he stripped it out and made it look like a space mobile too.
That's the way to do it.
Who did that? David had some crazy. One time David disappeared for like 2 years, 2 years. People would call me, have you seen David Abbruzzese? Like, I haven't fucking seen David. No one knows where David is. Nobody knows. Nobody. And so I'm on a trip. I used to like to go on trips all the time to New Mexico and Arizona. And I'm a Native American. I go out there. And I was hanging out in Sedona. And somebody said something about Dave Abbruzzese. I'm like, David Abbruzzese. And then I asked him, someone told me Dave Abbruzzese is living up here in Jerome, Arizona. Is that true? Who wants to know? Like, who are you? I mean, everybody was like,
yeah.
This one girl bust out. This is a picture of his baby. In the local but it's not his baby. This baby's from Antares. It's an alien baby.
Oh.
So I said, okay, hang on. Nobody would get a hold of him for me. So I left notes around town at little shops and shit. Stevie Salas, here's if you see him. And as soon as I got back to California, hey, bro. So I got in the car and drove right back to Sedona, Arizona. And then we went to his house. He had that white Pearl Jam drum set set up like in his living room. And we just started cutting tracks.
Like what the white Pearl Jam drum set, like it didn't have a trademark. Like that was only for Pearl Jam, right? So
it's the one I remember him playing the white kit like that. Set up in his living room, and that shit still sounded badass.
Oh yeah, man.
We were cutting ADATs at that particular point. David could make the ADAT sound right, you know?
Yeah. You had a gift for that, man. Jerome was a special place. I love, man. Jerome, Arizona is one of those places that has such a cool vibe. You know, I grew up in Montana, out in the woods, and Jerome reminds me of like one of those old mining towns in Montana. And now it's kind of trendy, right? Like Melvin or Maynard's got his winery and coffee shops and all that, right? But I remember going up there, and the old insane asylum turned into a steakhouse. Is that still there?
Really? Is it really?
Yeah.
That was right by David's house, wasn't it, David? Kind of like David had like two cougars that lived on, not cougar women. I mean, he had like mountain lions that lived on the roof of that house he was in.
Really? Yeah, these weren't tamed?
No. I was always afraid to go there because I always hear about these two lions that came on his roof at that house he had by the mining shaft.
Oh,
The other
that's
house.
Yeah.
Before or after, it was like you had the one house that had the drums, but before you had another one that was like on the hill with like by the mining shaft.
man, it's funny right now. Like while we're talking, Stevie, your cousin's texting me about the gig we got coming up, so he just needs to wait. But one of the guys in the chat wanted me to ask you, Dave, and we could talk about your style for just a quick sec because they were talking about your foot, like Bonham.
All right.
The first time you and I met, the fairgrounds in Bozeman, Montana, right? The band had just started taking off, and you guys were doing the fairgrounds. And I remember setting up with you guys. I was working the local crew, right? My buddies booked your show, and I remember you coming in at sound check, watching you warm up, and I'm like, who the hell is this dude? Like, I was such a hairband guy, right? At that point, like double bass was all I cared about, right, man? I was going to be the next Tommy Lee. And then I remember watching you do the Bonham stuff, thinking, Jesus, what this guy does with one foot. And then you wrote out stuff for me. Remember the Deep? You wrote out, you charted out what your hand scratch was for your pattern on Deep. And I remember thinking, like, how either fame had not hit you yet, or this is truly who Dave Abbruzzese is going to be for the rest of his life, man. But you brought like not only like that sort of humility, but wherever the roots of that stuff came from. I don't know if that was because you were a Texan, raised as a social cat or whatever, but your style, you brought this Bonham vibe into a band that was, like a little bit more. I mean, I guess there was a bohemian thing to that band, but there was also there was certainly funk stuff that you brought to it. But where did that style sort of come from originally?
Man, it came from a single car garage with a sand floor that would flood every time it got wet. Daryl Phillips, his bass player, he elevated me to the next level. I mean, the way he played, and it was a 3-piece band, so I had room to do things different. And then when I got in the program thing, that's just the way I did things, I don't know. You got to dance, got to dance.
That's it right there, man. If you can't dance to it, it ain't happening.
Yeah. I didn't know Dave was funky at first. I didn't know he was funky until we got in the room. I mean, because I knew he was dope in Pearl Jam, and he would play, and he would do his thing. And I used to watch him. I'd be like, yeah, that cat's cold-blooded. But when we got in the room and actually played, and I think it was Do Your Own Thing, which, by the way, is still one of the nastiest riffs, Stevie, today. And I always, I guess I had a guilty pleasure. It's always when I check my bass at gigs and shit, I always, I can't get enough of it. That's just like, it's just so dirty. I just love it. But the feels that he would do with his foot in between shit, just so nasty. And I was just like, man,
That's true. Yeah, really unique stuff.
It was a fine line of understanding 70s rock and real rock, understanding 70s funk.
Yeah.
And then having a punk rock attitude. I think that was the key. And that was the key for me is you had to have finesse like a real musician. A lot of punk rockers had no finesse. They just played punk rock, shoe, whatever. He played like a musician, but it had a punk rock feel to it. That's why Stuart Copeland, it was like he had a punk rock energy to that amazing thing he was doing. And that's what made those Police songs not feel like old man music. Because when Sting does it on his own, no disrespect, it sounds like old man music.
Sure.
Right? Without Stewart. And because Stewart brought the punk rock to it. And David understood punk rock. He pushed that fucking, the tempo was like this, click, click, click. And so he'd be behind it, and then it's still here, but now he's on top of that motherfucker, but not speeding.
Right.
Pushing it like picture Saran wrap. And that's just
oh, yeah.
I mean, but it never goes over it. Never goes through it. And that's the real musicianship.
Yeah.
So he feels like a real musician, but understood the Clash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You understand? He knew that energy. So that's what made the Pearl Jam live show so fucking good. It was like,
oh yeah,
like a bam, boom, down, bam, and then he'd wait, and roll right into the one, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I could have said it right away, and I was like, but I was like Melvin. I was a little afraid. I wanted to make sure he could play some real funk. And when we got the Bombshell, at first, we were fucking around. It wasn't that great at first. I was getting a little deep inside. I was getting depressed because I wanted it to work so bad. Then all of a sudden, something clicked, and David just went. And then I go, oh my God, thank you, baby Jesus. There it is.
Yeah.
It was great. And then it was just like we spent a couple of days in my bomb shelter, and it was just like we had known each other for a long time.
You know what? I'm interested in Dave's perspective on that, man. Do you remember what Stevie's talking about that first time, or maybe the first couple songs just didn't feel like it was clicking? Dave, did you hear that? Yeah, I'm wondering about for you. Yeah, when you guys first sat down
in the practice room, we never played together. We were in my practice room. We didn't know, we were just goofing around.
Yeah, did you feel like, man, this is not clicking yet, and then you just went into a different gear? Or?
Only for the first 10 minutes of fucking around. Melvin was doing that. I was doing something when I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, David found it, and then we fell right in.
Yeah, it was.
They had started their banter yet.
You know.
Yeah, the banter wasn't there, but the because if you guys are jamming, like anybody, and Dave, you could probably attest to this, man. Anybody that steps on stage, I lost Stevie for a second. Hang on. When somebody steps on stage with Melvin as a drummer, they instantly become a 10 times better drummer, right? I mean, it's what happens, man. Mel just has this ability to draw this feel. And so did you feel like, man, okay, I just need to get comfortable with this guy. It's kind of like people might not understand the relationship in bands being kind of like a romantic relationship, right? So you're out on a date, Stevie, right? You got Dave coming in and so you guys are starting to talk and, you slide into maybe talk about politics and you're like, oh, that doesn't feel right. We got to talk about what feels good, man, And so that's kind of like the sort of dating process for this first jam. But what was it that clicked for you, Dave, that just made this feel like, okay, these cats, they know what I'm talking about when I'm playing?
With respect, I mean, to me, as soon as Stevie started moving his body, I got it.
Yeah.
As soon as he started moving his body, he wasn't doing it. He was, as soon as he started moving, it was like, okay, and because that was always the thing, like with Stone, when Stone and I'd be working, if he was doing this, I knew that's the feel he wanted was to support that movement,
Sure.
And as soon as Stevie would throw his fucking hip into the song, it was like, okay, I'm going to play something that's going to, keep that hip greasy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also not so much at the beginning, but later on, Stevie knows what he wants. He's like, I want the, and it's like, okay, maybe I'll do something like that. Not quite so white. But
Was that one of the requests? Did Stevie ever say, "Can you play that less white, please"?
Yeah, never. If you have to say
no, he never did. He never did. He would just
never.
You always get those little hands going too.
The ghost notes. David.
That's what he used to say. The ghost notes. He talking about the ghost.
Okay, Melvin. Remember this shit? We wanted to cut this old song from the James Brown "Funky People" record. It was the JBs with Lynn Collins.
Did anyone hear Stevie talking?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, David?
Yep.
Okay.
There's a delay though, but I got you though.
Okay. Well, there's this track we wanted to cut, and we listened to it, and motherfucking David. I mean, it was Clyde Stubblefield at his best, man. And he goes bam, 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 pop. And Dave's like, and he says stop. He says stop to Kevin Smith, the engineer, and he got smaller sticks because I'm hitting too hard. And we compressed. He goes, David, tell Kevin, give me more compression on the overall kit. And then he just was like, it sounded like magic. I mean, it was just like he just lightened the touch a little bit, and it was just like. That track is so badass. Whenever I play that for anybody, they just freak out. And David, as a drummer, knew to change the sticks. He knew to turn the compression up. He knew to make himself rock, but not hit too hard.
Yeah.
And man, I'm telling you that if you listen to What Have I Got to Do to Prove Myself to You, it's on YouTube.
Yeah.
Me and Dave and Melvin. And you will hear Dave Abbruzzese that nobody probably as ever knows exists.
Yeah.
Man, God, hopefully he comes back in a second. We lost his net connection for just
That's
a
like
moment.
Dave though. Motherfucker was always dropping out. And just
Yeah, right. He's on Dave time, man. That's all good. But when we were talking about, maybe you guys coming back together and recording something, what's cool thinking about it is the wisdom that we talked about, right? Where you recognize that it's time to appreciate the good things we have, not just how, touring, experiences can be appreciated now, but think about what you guys have all been through, like the last 25, 30 years, right? You assemble all of your experiences with all the musicians you've played with, all the recordings you've done, all the stages you've been on, all the buses and vans and flights you've been on. Think about putting that all together one more time, right? For the three of you guys, I think I can imagine that it would just be, even if it wasn't for the audience, I would bet it'd be so cathartic for you guys to feel like, oh, brotherhood again,
It'd be nice.
Yeah.
It'd really be nice.
Yeah, man.
You don't really do it for the audience ever, though. I don't think, do you, Melvin? It's like you do it for us, and when we're fucking, this is exciting to me, and it feels great to me. Then you can only hope if the audience gets it. And a lot of times, maybe even with Melvin's music, even with Dan Reed and my music, a lot of times people in certain countries just didn't get it until like 2 or 3 years after the fact.
Sure.
Like, wow, what is this shit? And I got kids now that write me and go, man, that song Tell Your Story Walking's insane. I'll be, well, how old are you? And they go, I was born in 1995. And I go, I cut that song in 1994. It's older than you. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes when the kind of music Melvin and I were doing wasn't a mainstream kind of music in America at all.
And got lost in the shuffle quite a bit,
Yeah. Yeah. So it was tough for people to understand it. And so if we liked it, then you could go to sleep at night and not be embarrassed that you sold out. You did something shitty just trying to make people happy.
Yeah. No, I didn't hear anything trying to like sell out to the masses. But I think what I was saying is rather than.
No, I know we never would do that. We never did that. And obviously we
Dave, I know you disappeared for just a second, man, but I was just saying with all the wisdom that you guys have sort of amassed over the last 25, 30 years, thinking about how much different you would approach music, and the way you played and the way the interaction would be. I think it'd be so amazing to hear what you guys would come up with now, after this much time. I think, there's you guys have almost grown up, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guarantee you the three of us could make a hell of a record right now.
We should have took on the IMF tours. David and I were doing these tours called the IMF. It's called the International Motherfuckers. That's what we have a little private game.
I love it.
It's called so we would tour and we play like Fuji Rock and we play all these big festivals and we go play all over Europe. And David was playing drums on most of that stuff. And we should have. I didn't even think because we had Tim and then we had Jared Harris. We should have had Melvin come out on some of those. So maybe next time we go out with Bernard Fowler and all, we got to bring Melvin out. Because with that band, we can do anything we want. We can do a whole set of Rolling Stones and then pop into a whole set of James Brown. We can do whatever we want, or from any of our catalogs.
Yeah, all Green Romance Orchestra.
Melvin Brannon to do that. What was that song? What was that song you used to? You ever fuck around with no Green Romance Orchestra? All that song we call Remain. Remains is my jam, dude. That was my jam. Dave used to sit in my bedroom and play that shit over and over again. Because he was remixing it. But Melvin, what was that song? It was a Dan Reed Network song, and used to pop on that motherfucker with a synth bass and
bass.
Get to you.
Yeah,
forgot to make her mine.
That's it.
Forgot to make her mine.
I went up to San Francisco one night. I went up there for some shit, and then Melvin was playing, so I popped over to the club to see him, and they played that. Melvin was up front, and fucking. It was fucking sick.
Oh yeah, it's a ridiculous band.
A lot of that kind of shit where the Sonics were like that clear and badass. So we should drag Melvin out on some IMF dates with us, David.
Yeah, you guys still doing some of those?
We can. We get offers all the time. It's just either Bernard's getting ready to go back on the Rolling Stones, or I was really busy with the Rod Stewart or my films. Mm-hmm. And David, David, you got to just figure David out. He's the loose cannon.
Yeah. You know what, man? I mean, I don't mean.
How about loose for real? How about loose for real? How about like I'm in Dallas airport and his brother calls me and goes, I can't find David. And I go, isn't he on the plane? He goes, no. And I go, well, we're playing in Hungary tomorrow. He goes, I don't know where he is. So I called the drummer of my friend Moochie who plays with not Rankin Roger. What's the other guy's name? From English Beat.
Dave Wakeling.
Dave Wakeling.
Plays with Dave Wakeling. I go, Moochie, get on the plane tomorrow. I don't think Dave's going to make it. And he goes, if he makes it, we'll have 2 drummers. If he doesn't, we're covered. And Moochie came in with no rehearsal. We played a huge festival in Hungary, in the streets of Hungary. And we didn't find David for a while.
Oh, no.
Yeah, man.
But you know what? When you get crazy guys.
That marriage is over.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. And imagine if Led Zeppelin said, this John Bonham motherfucker is just too much to handle. Or Keith Moon, I am sick of this motherfucker's crazy shit. I can't deal with the stress. So then they fire that. And the band is never the same. Like David's band, Pearl Jam's a great band, but they've never been the same.
Not even. Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to Stone and all them cats, and Jeff have always been nice to me. No disrespect. But imagine if the Who did that.
Yeah. No, it just wouldn't work.
I had enough of Keith Moon. He's driving me crazy.
Yeah. No.
Great guys that are loose cannons deliver amazing shit. But with it sometimes comes the madness of what makes them great. And so, it happens.
I'm glad you bring that up, man, because I hate to sound like Barbara Walters, man, but at the end of a lot of the conversations, I love to talk about legacy, right? For me, I love, just like when I talked to Rudy Sarzo the other day, Rudy was really, the dude's 70 years old, right? It's crazy, but that guy has played with everybody. He was talking about how he said, man, at this age and where I'm at in life, I don't care about what other people think of me. In his eyes, his concept is I want to get closer to God, right? That's what he said. He said, but what I feel like is like my body is a rental car, right? And the way my perspective is, I'm going to turn in my rental car, go on to another flight. I'm going to go on to another place. I want to turn my rental car in full of gas and in good shape, right? And I thought, dude, that's legacy right there, man. Just like, that's living a good life. And I'd love to just hear from you guys, man, if you wouldn't mind. Stevie, you first, man. When you're on your last breath, what would you want to be remembered for?
I just want to be remembered that I did good work. That the work I did was worth listening to years later, and not something that was a piece of a moment, but something that you could put on years later and not be embarrassed to listen to.
Nice. I dig that, man. How about you, Mel?
Well, I was, funny enough, just thinking about that the other day. And I think that, with what I enjoy the most is making people happy, putting a smile on people's faces, making people actually better people. You know what I mean? And so if I could have a legacy where I touched somebody and made somebody feel, it made somebody feel good about seeing me do something, and through that vision, they see that they could do some shit too, whatever their shit is, then I've done my work, I feel good about that. That's where I'm at.
I love that, man. I love it. Well, David, I would love to know yours. Yeah, buddy.
First thing that pops in my mind is I want the people that gave so freely to me to allow me to grow and fuck up and to learn from it and all that. I want to for them to know that I appreciate it. And the next biggest thing is I want my daughter to be proud.
Heard that.
I want her to be able to be proud of, I don't know if she's discovered the music. I think she's a musician. She's doing great stuff. But, it's like I want her to understand, because the music is such a big part of how I feel about myself, that I just want there to be a time where she understands me more than I could ever present myself, because she understands, she has the music,
Yeah, man. That's beautiful.
Yeah. True. And I have, I've pulled it off. I'm still sitting here, and it's amazing to me. I'm still sitting here, and sitting here with my head on straight, you know, and still in control of you know, my limbs, and still loving music, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, more than ever, you know, and you know, and I've learned how, and I think it's even in my life. I mean, I can sit behind a kit and play now without killing myself. You know, it's like I don't have to work so hard to prove something to myself with the music anymore. You know, I can sit and play and be comfortable, and when I'm done, I don't hurt as much as I used to, because, you know, I'm connected to, you know, my mind, my spirit, and my physical playing. It's all connected now for the first time ever. You know, it's like that, you know, and that's come from many years of many patient people and many incredible mentors, and, you know,
Man.
So it's like just showing that I want that appreciation for all of that, for the gift of the ability to have this life.
Nice.
You know,
Gratitude.
To show.
Boom.
I like it.
Yeah, you guys are so profound. This is beautiful. Man, I got to tell you guys how much I appreciate this. You know what? I mean, there's no better way for me to go out than that, man. I have to just thank Stevie Salas, Dave Abbruzzese, Melvin Brannon. You guys, I love you, man. I will tell you this. My favorite quote, Jim Carrey said this to a bunch of marketing students a long time ago. And for me, it rings true. He said, because they're marketing students, he said, the effect you have on others is the greatest form of currency there is. And there's a lot of what you guys talked about legacy right there. And I got to tell you, the effect you guys have had on me has been incredibly profound. Dave, you know, man, from day one that you and I met, you changed my life. Melvin, the fortunate times I've gotten to play on stage with you and all the stuff you did with the network, man, it was incredibly tasty, and you know, bucket list item checked off. Now I just got you, Stevie, you and I just got to get together so you can yell at me and tell me how white I am. All right. So yeah.
I heard your guitar player might get stuck in Canada. I was down at the beach in San Diego a few days ago, and a few weeks ago, and I told Ponda, well, tell Homeboy the singer, I go, if he can't make it because he can't get out of the country, I go, I'll just come in and fill in on those Flock of Seagull gigs real quick. I just go get my Echoplex out and just jam that shit, and then cover for the money. I don't care about the money.
They literally just texted about that. Actually, yeah, he's stuck. He can't get out of Canada. So you're on May 7th in San Diego.
Let me know. I got to get that digital. Hey, I want to leave you guys with something real quick. Real quick for you. You keep talking about Rudy. Okay, so I found this picture, and then Melvin was talking about the Bus Boys. I'm trying to look at this picture, and we said something about Steve Lukather. Okay. Yeah. Where's my camera? Look at this picture I found. See if you can see if it's clear or not.
Hold it still for just a sec.
That's me. Steve Lukather, he's all young. You can't barely see it though. And see Rudy Sarzo in the middle.
Yep.
I was like, I don't know. I was a kid.
Oh my God, that's great, man. I love it.
Is that Brian Boys?
Hold on. One last thing. David.
Yeah.
David. So in the beginning, before you and Mel got on the phone, he was asking me like a couple of cracks, like what's a funny story I could say about you guys. And I told one about Melvin in the back of the bus in Berlin after one of his crazy nights. And I'm going to tell my favorite Dave Abbruzzese bit, one of my favorites. So we go to San Diego to shoot a video for the song called Break It Out, I think it was, in San Diego. We shot a video with the director, Chris Hafner. Rest in peace for Chris. Oh. And David flew in. I had some people pick him up, rock star like a motherfucker. We're shooting in my hometown of Carlsbad, California, on the beach with all my pro surfer friends and pro skateboarder friends. And these little kids were all freaking out because everyone heard the guy from Pearl Jam was hanging out in Carlsbad. You know, we ain't hanging out, drinking coffee, hanging out. And he was shooting his video all over town. And so I sent these kids over. They go, who is that guy? I go, do me a favor. Go up to David and go up to him and say, I love your band so much. And then David would go, oh, thank you. And he goes, then they said, Stone Temple Pilots is my favorite band of all time. Remember, everybody used to razz Pearl Jam, Stone Temple Pilots sound like Pearl Jam. So I told him, go and tell him that Stone Temple Pilots is your favorite.
Oh, God.
And I don't mean no disrespect to Dean and Robert.
Yeah, like Yeah, I'm sure Dave would just roll with it. He's like, yeah, man. I'm grateful for that, man.
Everyone used to razz STP about that first album kind of being like a Pearl Jam record, right? So I had
Yeah,
that kid
sure,
play that shit.
sure.
We were all dying.
God.
I got the
Yeah,
joke.
I'm going to bring up something too from that. I got picked up from the airport by a runner for that video shoot that I did the sound for too. I remember, but this dude picks me up, and the car door didn't close. I had to hold it closed all the way for the ride back, and the car's filling full of exhaust and shit.
Oh my God. Damn. You're going to have to wait to talk to Chris Hafner for a while about that.
Yo,
Oh man, I love that guy. That was funny. That was a fun night. That was a fun day.
man,
Wore
you
my
got
ass out.
I
thought I was on acid while I was watching your family dance a mariachi while we were playing funk.
Well, you know what we did? Kevin, what we did? Kevin, if you watch that video to break it out, it's about I'm a pinata, right? And like, you know, all these pro skaters and everybody's trying to crush me. But in the end, we created this scene where we got my stepmom and my dad and all their aunts and uncles that we put on, like they were cooking in the backyard, and they made it look like a birthday party for smashing a pinata for like a Mexican birthday party. And so in the PA system, we were cranking mariachi music, and they were like, they're all dancing like this. But in our earphones, we were listening to rocking, and everyone's they're all dancing like this. And it's kind of a total, was like an acid trip. Wasn't it amazing? It was like it's like a cumbia dance, right? And we're just we're just rocking out. But they can't hear that music. All they could hear was the cumbia music.
Man, I got to tell you guys, I haven't laughed this hard since the pandemic started. This is amazing. I love it. Yeah, man, we need to get video out of all that stuff. Somebody's asking, they want to see the mariachi video. So
it's called Break It Out. And I think if you look under Stevie Salas alternative, Break It Out, there's a couple versions of it. But you'll know the one because this was this crazy one. It starts off with like a mariachi music.
Okay.
David's mowing. Some
Stevie's
guy's
dressed up like a
lawn.
piano.
Got a lawnmower. Some guy's mowing his lawn, scratching his ass. And all
Oh my God, man. Gentlemen, hey, congratulations on your Emmy, by the way, Stevie. I think that's fantastic.
Loser. I'm an official Emmy Award loser.
It doesn't matter. You know, nomination is as good as being inducted in the Hall of Fame, regardless of how whether you got to be there or not, right? So, fuck it. I think you guys are all Hall of Famers to me, man, and I really appreciate you guys being here, weathering the storm with technology. All you guys that are chatting, I'm actually going to rebroadcast this. You'll see it if you want to go up to www.accesskevin.com. I'll have it archived there. If you just came in, you missed some crazy shit between these guys, man. Yeah, buddy.
Kevin,
yeah.
Kevin, I got to tell you, man, I think I told you this before. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you, man. You've done some really great things, and you're humble, and you're giving, and you're gracious, and yeah, man, way to go. Congratulations on all your success, bro.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you, man, so much, man, and all you guys, man, and you too, cats, man. We need to make some more music super soon because there's just not enough of the good shit out there. You know what I mean?
We can do that shit.
Yeah, I think
Stevie, I love you.
What's
Stevie,
that?
I love you, Melvin. I love you, Kevin. I love you.
Love you too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks for everyone. All right.